Hey everyone, it's Ivan at kitbadger.com, here to bring you a little gear review, and today we're talking about these targets by Sage Dynamics. If you're carrying a firearm defensively, offensively, ultimately having to use this with another person at the other end of it, the reason, politically correct reason, is to stop the threat so they can no longer aggress on us. And that usually turns into killing the person, unless they surrender after they get shot up a couple times. But so to that end of stopping the threat, we want to neutralize that threat as quick as we can. And these targets actually kind of go a long way in enhancing that. In that, what are we actually aiming at to go ahead and stop the threat? So for example, this first target I'm gonna staple up here, obviously, dude's head. And with that, central nervous system. This whole part, kind of this red part in here, this big circle you can use depending on what you're wanting to do. But ultimately this red in here, that's pretty much the light switch mortality. Around anywhere in here, like party's over, this person's no longer gonna be a threat. Now, all sorts of miraculous people get things in their brains and somehow live through it. Vast majority of people to get something penetrating through here, i.e. a bullet, don't ever recover from that one. This other target obviously pairs quite nicely, also from Sage Dynamics, and it is showing all your vitals in your thoracic cavity, up in your chest. And so you have obviously your lungs outlined in blue, and then outlined in red, you have your heart, and then coming up here, you have your aortic arch, and that's some pretty major stuff. As far as rounds going through lungs, you see with animals all the time, people lung shoot deer, and they go about as far as they can hold their breath, which if you're in a fight and this guy's armed, it's probably a really long time. Heart, things tend to go down pretty quick, but right up here, this is definitely the light switch. But now I have these targets set up so I can do a little bit of shooting. So I got my guys set up down here, throw my ear pro on. Make sure this guy's gassed up and hit the pro timer. Put some rounds on this dude. All right, got a couple rounds on this guy. Not from very far away, in part, 'cause I'm too lazy to walk back and forth. But first couple rounds down here, one right here in the heart, good to go. Other guy over here, over in the lung. And then this guy right here, that's money up there. This guy doesn't want to party anymore after that. But what I really like about these targets is they're anatomical, and they're lending themselves on a couple different levels to my training. So on one, you have Dave Grossman, who wrote On Killing, if you're familiar with that. And one of the things he talks about was the idea of shifting targets away from like bullseyes to silhouettes, and it in turn is conditioning, making people okay with pulling the trigger with someone on the other end of that gun. Now, it sounds kind of messed up, and it is kind of messed up if you don't temper that with everything else that comes with it, the responsibility of having a firearm and using a firearm, and knowing when to use that firearm. But all that aside, once you have that responsibility, know when, all those other things, yeah, like there's a certain amount of conditioning that kind of needs to happen, and these lend to that. And furthermore, they take kind of this obscure, like, I wonder what I look like inside. And they're like, oh, well, this is exactly what you look like inside. Like, this is what controls you. And if you turn that off, your money. And this heart down here also controls you. Turn that off, your money. So to that end, you have these two targets that actually accentuate where you want to be aiming on a person. And yeah, I appreciate these targets for that. There's a bunch of different targets out there, some really good ones too. One of my favorites is the Viking Tactics by Kyle Lamb. Essentially, more or less the lion's share of a skeleton, 3 different target areas, pelvic girdle, all of it, bunch of numbers, shapes. You can use it for a ton of different drills. But one, they're expensive and they're big. Basically, size of a poster, or if you really spring for the expensive ones, they're on cardboard, which aside from being expensive, then turns into this massive thing you gotta drag back and forth back to the range. These, on the other hand, you can print off for free at home. Go to sagedynamics.org, kind of scroll down to the bottom, and they have both these targets as PDFs. You just download them, print as many as you want, you're good to go forever. Really appreciate having these targets by Sage Dynamics. Next time you go to the range, print some out and see how they do for you. But as always, thanks for joining us at kitbadger.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.